Excellent, thank you. So, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Nicola Taylor and I am the Chief Operating Officer here at ScotlandIS. We are a membership and cluster management organisation for the digital tech sector here in Scotland. Today's session is specifically for organisations who are not based in the Highlands and Islands, who are looking to expand their reach into the area, whether that's working with, selling to or partnering with businesses supported by Highlands and Islands Enterprise. We know that there is strong capability across Scotland's tech and business community, and often the question isn't, can we support businesses in the Highlands and Islands, but rather, how do we access that opportunity and how does the system actually work? That's exactly what today is all about. So I am delighted to be joined by John McKenzie from Highlands and Islands Enterprise, who's going to give us a chat about how the current support and funding landscape look, where external providers can add value, how engagement and procurement works, and lots of other interesting facts. So this session is about understanding the opportunity, the process, and where the alignment sits. It's not about taking opportunities away from organisations already based in the Highlands and Islands, but about strengthening connections across Scotland, ensuring that businesses in the region can maximise on the funding and support that is available to them. We're also going to be joined by Colin Hardy from Factory 73, who is already supplying into the region, and he'll give us a bit of information around how that works as an organisation who is not based in the region. I would ask that all questions are dropped into the chat function and I will facilitate those for you at the end of both of the presentations. So that's enough from me, and without further ado, I shall pass you over to John. Thank you, John.
Excellent, thank you, Nicola. Hold on, I'll just start off by sharing my screen and make sure that works all right. We tried it earlier on and it worked okay, and I'm assuming it works okay now. Is that right, Nicola?
Yep, you're good, John. We can see them.
Excellent. So yeah, good afternoon all, and welcome to our Raising Awareness of Digital Innovation, Technology and Entrepreneurship Opportunities in the Highlands and Islands. So yeah, my name is John McKenzie. I'm the Senior Development Manager in the Innovation and Technology team here at HIE, and first thing I'm going to talk to you, the presentation will probably last about 30-40 minutes, and afterwards we can I'll answer any questions that you have. So what am I going to talk about, or what am I not going to talk about? Well, good news is I'm not going to talk about complex procurement. I'm in no way a procurement expert, and this isn't a procurement session for anything that we're directly wanting for you to bid into. So in some ways that's good for both of us, because if I started speaking about procurement, it would probably put you to sleep within about 15 minutes, and probably me earlier. What I am going to talk about is opportunities in the region for organisations providing technology, innovation and digital solutions. I'm going to link those opportunities to the support services and programmes that we do offer in the High region. And this sort of webinar, could an AI-driven bot deliver this webinar better than me? Probably, but I don't think it will be quite as entertaining. So looking at some of the attendees, obviously some of you are based in the Highlands and Islands area, which is great, but some of you aren't. So I thought I'd start off by just saying sort of who we are. So this one shows in the sort of darker green the area that we cover. So we cover 50% of the landmass, 10% of the population. So that's about 500,000 people in the equivalent size of a country called Belgium. I can't think, I must have said that maybe in my 20-year high career about 600 or 700 times. There are similar sized countries to Belgium we could use, but we always seem to compare ourselves to Belgium for no particular reason. And we're the main non-departmental government body. We're the main economic development agency for the Highlands and Islands. So we're headquartered here in Inverness, but we have offices and area teams dotted all around the Highlands and Islands, from Shetland down to Argyll and the Islands and everywhere in between. And we probably service, there's probably around sort of 20 to 25,000 companies in the Highlands and Islands area, and we obviously work closely with what we would consider sort of portfolio, maybe 600 or 700, but actually support probably close to 2,000 or 3,000 clients per annum. So both in terms of a business and also from a strengthening in communities perspective. So that's a little bit in terms of who we are. Again, not going to go into too much detail on this. This is again sort of bit background information. In terms of our strategy, we've got 4 key pillars: people, place, planet, and prosperity. I'd probably sort of focus in on this particular one is on prosperity, and this sort of area of our framework that my team, the sort of innovation tech team, focus on most, because obviously it covers innovation capability and capacity, advanced manufacturing and technology, and digital adoption, as well as a number of other things. But our sort of aim is to make more companies and communities more innovative, adaptable, and use, digital technology, robotics, AI, etc., to help strengthen their productivity, their well-being, and also their growth over the next few years. So that's a sort of quick run through in terms of our strategy, which I thought I'd just cover off. So I'm looking at this not just from an innovation support viewpoint, but what I'm going to talk about is basically seeing the sort of support mechanisms that are currently available to clients in the Highlands and Islands. So basically, if you're on this call and you're from the Highlands and Islands, you've got 2 sort of possibilities. You can actually you can apply for some of this support, or also you can be a provider of the expertise to this support. So I'm obviously explaining that. So I'll start off with the area that I actually am directly responsible for, which is sort of innovation support, from innovation and R&D support from HIE, and we've got sort of 3 main pillars of that. So we've got dedicated support from a senior innovation manager for each HIE area team. So we've got 5 of us in the team, and we cover specific areas within the HIE area. I, as well as overseeing our innovation support service, have specific responsibility for Shetland and Loch Aberskye and Wester Ross. Even though I'm based out of the Inverness office, I am able to service clients and the area teams using technology, and obviously I do visit reasonably regularly to those areas, and have supported a large range of clients on research and development and innovation advice over the years. And I suppose that's sort of testimony in terms of the fact that a lot of this is talking about opportunities for technology, digital companies, consultancy companies out with the Highlands and Islands to get more involved in the Highlands and Islands area. But actually, for example, there can be 250 miles, you can go from one area and you don't leave the HIE area. So even us delivering support in terms of Highlands and Islands Enterprise, a lot of it's done now virtually, which seems to work well. Connectivity is pretty good. So that was just to emphasize that actually sort of distance isn't really a barrier anymore in terms of providing support, supporting businesses, social enterprises, etc., across the Highlands and Islands. So I suppose the main bit that I want to talk about in terms of the areas that from an innovation viewpoint that may be of interest is our research, development and innovation grant, and our specialist innovation support service. So we offer a grant of between 5,000 to 100,000 support innovation R&D projects. Element of flexibility in this area can sometimes be higher or slightly lower. Larger R&D funding projects can be supported via our sort of more through the area teams. So we can obviously have given R&D fund and innovation funding projects of millions of pounds before, but in terms of this programme, it's sort of specifically around that number. We primarily use R&D state subsidy schemes, so varied intervention rates depending on the size of the company and the type of project it is. It's not really for startups unless it's sort of really high growth startups or potential spin outs from existing companies. We've done quite a few of those, the companies that have suddenly developed and maybe an in-house technology product which they then have decided actually that other people in the sector they work in could utilise. So we've obviously supported, and they've obviously created maybe spin out companies from that. So we've obviously helped support that over the years, and we also welcome joint applications. And the other element is our specialist innovation support grant. So that's a grant between £2,500 to £7,500 available to support the cost of specialist support and advice to support an innovation project within an organisation which does not have the in-house expertise available. So that can include specific areas in terms of research and development, helping support new products and services, improving productivity, developing a strategy for future innovation, and protecting your intellectual assets. So, and I'll come into this more as I'm further on and try and sort of link this, but the issue with all these sort of schemes is we don't have framework agreements. So therefore, the clients have to either go out and find the expertise themselves, or and sometimes in certain programs they've got to provide 2 or 3 different quotes. But I'll tie this up further on in this presentation. So it's just to sort of emphasize some of the programs. So this one's really for example, one I've recently done, even though it's probably not in directly in terms of companies in the tech sector, company in Skye looking to develop its product range in terms of, it's on our website, so it's out in the public. Skye Skins, they obviously do really high-end rugs, but you can only sell so many high-end rugs, and they wanted to develop a range of other products. Now, they didn't have that in-house design expertise. They were looking at sort of various other sort of things like handbags and various other bits and pieces. So they worked with a consultancy actually in New York. In this case, it's one they found themselves. It wasn't, obviously, we didn't suddenly go work with this particular company. And also the Glasgow School of Arts. They had 2 particular specialists work with them. They didn't have the expertise in house, especially around the Glasgow School of Art one, and they did ask me, and I said, well, actually, it's you can speak to a number of different people. We actually put in that case and put them to Interface, who then did the search of the academic background, because we didn't really have anyone in mind from the sort of private sector that we thought could actually fit in their needs. So this, in many ways, is what this webinar is all about. It's sort of maybe raising the awareness of opportunities to potentially suppliers, but also we're doing another webinar next month, but also to actual clients to make them aware of, apart from their local area, what's out there in terms of expertise that they can potentially get quotes for or speak to. So yeah, so moving forward in terms of away from maybe the direct innovation support, my colleague Teresa Swain sort of heads up in terms of our digital and technology, and Teresa works really closely with the Guide partners such as ScotlandIS, the digital team, directorate teams at Scottish Government, Scottish Enterprise and South of Scotland Enterprise, and has done a lot this last sort of year on various different support mechanisms, including, artificial intelligence support. We've got the artificial exploration voucher. We've got our HIE Digital and Technology Adoption Capital Grant. That's a mouthful. And HIE's Digital Specialist Advice Grant. So I'll probably talk in a bit more detail about each of these areas. So as from the slide says, our AI mentoring support aims to provide sort of personalized guidance and insights to help achieve business goals. We'll provide tailored advice and resources based on needs. The support we delivered online for up to 2 hours discussing an organization's requirements, and then they're invited to apply for a voucher between £500 and £1,500 towards exploring adopting the use of AI. And as I said, that can be used for a number of different things: improve efficiency, automate repetitive tasks, free up time for employees to focus on more strategic activities, enhance customer engagement, use of chatbots, smarter marketing and content creation, enabled data-driven decision making. So it's quite an open voucher that at the moment, and one that we're looking to roll out again in the new financial year. Again, that was sometimes an issue with clients saying, oh, we're not sure who to work with, or actually we've been either with a local supplier or they actually can't do it in the time frame that we need it to be done. And it's slightly difficult for us to then directly say, oh, you can work with this, this, and this, because again, none of these programs are under a specific framework. And I'll talk about that, why we're not doing that in a wee minute as well. So HIE's Digital and Technology Adoption Capital Grant, which we've called Data Grant. And I know a lot of people, my colleagues, like the name of the Data Grant. I don't like it as much because I think people instantly think it's just about data and data science, and which is absolutely part of it, but it is far from the only part of this grant scheme. And it's basically a capital grant that basically can support a range of different things to actually help a business, including reducing costs, speeding up processes, improving customer insights, enable a faster decision making, lowering carbon emissions, and increasing revenue. Again, I'm not going to read them word for word, but areas around robotics, cobots, sensor technologies, IoT, data innovation, AI, cyber, software development, augmented reality, additive manufacturing, laser machining, cybersecurity, and all cybersecurity solutions, and obviously anything around deep tech, blockchain, photonics, aerospace, etc. So it's quite a broad range. And this is never a program about saying, oh, can we buy just a bit of software or we want to update our website. This is really more about and that's why we're doing the other support around the specialist program and basically some of the mentoring stuff as well. And obviously we do work closely with the likes of ScotlandIS and the Scottish Government. The recent sort of AI roadshows that happened in Inverness, Dundee, and I think it was Gretna, was to focus on actually, using technology to really take your business forward and be able to adapt with the current economic climates, and really look at a lot more of them with the advanced technologies, and not just for the sake of doing it, but doing it in a really structured way, which obviously a lot of the businesses, probably 90% of the business we deal with, will not have that in-house capability, or even that in-house capability of something's knowing where to start, or if they do, then looking in terms of who's out there that can help support them and supply, either in terms of the hardware, the software, the robots, the advice, etc., that they need to do that. So but this grant is, and it's slightly different to it's not prescriptive in terms of the fact that it's not prescriptive in terms of the fact that we're saying there's you'll get 25,000. We look at these grants on a sort of case by case basis. So suddenly came and said, actually, we've got a project here that we're looking to do, and we roughly the costs are going to be 80,000. We can put in 30. We're looking for 50-something% intervention rate. We could probably look at that and say, okay, what are you going to deliver from that? Well, we actually think this will increase our productivity by 15-20%, actually improve our growth over 2 years by maybe 10-15%. And so in terms of what we do, in terms of how we support clients, we're basically buying economic benefits. And a lot of that time now, that used to always just be about jobs, but it's not. Jobs are good, but it's also about increasing in terms of productivity, and also if it helps in terms of reducing your carbon footprint as well. So that's equally important to us. And okay, and why is it not moving forward? Don't actually know. Oh, here we go. There we are. Another grant that's actually, I thought I'd better just say, we've also got our Digital Specialist Advice Grant, which is different to the Innovation Specialist Advice Grant. I know this is getting slightly confusing because it came in later. It's currently paused, but it should be back in place next in April time, hopefully. And again, that's giving up to £5,000 for basically for consultancies, for suppliers to help work with companies to basically help them develop a strategy structure. Most of the outcomes for these things are basically detailed reports, feasibility studies, which gives them a clear platform of what they can do next, and then that potentially leads into the data grant, as they said, to actually maybe put some of those things that's been picked up into place. So again, that covers very much similar to what the data grant mentioned as well. So that's two really sort of key specific things around the digital aspect. And one of the biggest problems that sort of my colleagues have had in terms of both the specialist advice grants and the sort of grants is actually assisting companies in finding the right providers for or getting both these schemes require sort of 2 to 3 direct quotes in terms of the costs, etc. And actually getting that has proven quite challenging in terms of the fact that actually a lot of local suppliers, if there's local suppliers in the area that has that technology, can be really busy and can't do it in the timescales required. So hence why we're doing this today. It's almost to try and say, actually, to make maybe the supply sector, especially in terms of technology and digital, aware of the opportunities in the Highlands and Islands. And also, if you have clients that are based in the Highlands and Islands, that you can maybe flag up saying, you know, have you spoken to HIE in terms of what support's available as well? So it's almost like being an advocate for HIE, even though you may not be based in the region. Another one which is slightly away, it's not in our directorate and we're currently paused. Again, it's the Green Grant Fund, and that's very much about supporting companies and providing a grant to help them reduce or green their energy usage and make progress towards achieving net zero carbon emissions, for example. So a lot of that might be use of IoT, sensor technologies, etc. Again, that doesn't have a framework agreement, so therefore companies are having to go out and basically find suppliers. So again, that's opportunities out there in terms of the sector, because a lot in terms of actually for businesses reducing carbon footprint is going to be done through technology, and we sort of recognise that. So that's another scheme that we do, that's actually an opportunity out there for businesses to get more involved with or flag up to businesses across the region. So support and grants are great, but can lead to confusion. Hello, I am confused. Well, I'm pretty much confused every day, but thankfully, and that's sort of, I've sort of talked about that the last sort of 20 minutes or so, is we don't, for a lot of the programs that I've mentioned, we don't have a framework. We used to have framework agreements, and if you don't know, a framework agreement is basically we go through a big procurement exercise, and it can be a specific supplier or a number of suppliers can be on that framework, and we then only use them and only tell clients that they can only use those suppliers under our framework. But our sort of strategy around that changed, must be about 2.5 years ago now, and for a number of different reasons. One, in terms of just the pure procurement time, and also some of the time maybe that the fact was that the specific suppliers in the framework didn't always provide the right expertise or had the expertise that was fully delivering what the client wanted. So therefore, in terms of our innovation specialist advice, our digital specialist advice, the data grants, we even though we do support the costs of working with a consultancy or various digital firms or various software or hardware suppliers, we do not particularly stipulate, but what we do require for a number of these programs is sort of 3 quotations, and that's been quite challenging for a lot of our businesses to provide that, especially in a lot more of the remote areas. But it's also, as well as being, and it's not just in terms of for the large, it's really for, especially for the consultancy elements, to actually get them a sort of framework plan. And then what maybe happens is that we find that they ask us, oh, can you recommend anyone? We can't directly recommend, but we will say, actually speak to these number of people. absolutely no obligation on either party is placed by HIE, and then they can decide in terms of both the supplier of the expertise and the particular client with the potential project in hand. They can decide whether they want to work together or not. Some of the time we've actually said to clients, look, one quote's fine because they've demonstrated that they're really struggling to get more than one. If they obviously clients have in the past, especially around the R&D stuff, that they already have identified who they want to work with, and as long as it's within the reasonable price range, that's fine. We're not saying that you have to always go with the cheapest. It's just to be able to say that all of a sudden, if it was someone they knew and they were charging £1,000 an hour, and the actual going rate for that particular work was £300 an hour. That's why we need the comparisons, etc., to make sure that there's a sort of fairness going round. And very keen to stress that there is a good tech sector in the Highlands and Islands. It does a really good job in terms of servicing a lot of clients' needs. So we are not advocating and saying that the current provision locally is not up to scratch, and we're not trying to take any opportunities away from them. A lot of the stuff that we support now is probably, that actually there's limited support available locally to do that, or they're actually really busy and they can't actually service it within a specific period of time. So for example, our specialist digital support, it had a specific cut-off time for quotes to be in, and actually the project's completed sort of early in the year. So that meant we were looking for quick turnaround time. So therefore that was one of the other reasons why we're sort of saying, well, can we just be people more aware of the opportunities to work in the Highlands and Islands? And yeah, so building awareness of suppliers across Scotland to our business, and vice versa, highlighting the opportunities in the HIE area to digital technology consultancies, hardware and software suppliers. We see it as a win-win for both parties, and as a real opportunity. We're not also asking you to go then out there hunting for work and basically approaching companies and saying there's grants available in Highlands that we can do projects with you, and all of a sudden we're going to get inundated. But what we are saying is that actually, if there's clients that you've got in the Highlands and Islands, or you're looking in, that actually, sometimes even though we try and engage with loads of different clients across various sectors, some of them we don't have much interaction with. So you can obviously flag up saying actually there is quite a lot of support, and in terms of digital, etc. And a lot of the support we're advocating there is actually for sort of non-tech companies to actually bring technology to them. Obviously, we do actually support tech companies to develop new products themselves. So that's different. So, and as I said, there is nothing stopping companies based in the Highlands and Islands area for applying for any of those grants. If you're not based in the Highlands and Islands area and you don't have an office in the Highlands area, unfortunately, you can't apply for any of that particular support. There is some opportunities around sort of some of the mentoring schemes and other things planned next year that we will be putting out to tender. So obviously, check in terms of the public procurement websites, etc., as well, for opportunities around that. So there you go. So sort of thank you for sort of listening to me there, sort of rattling on. Hopefully I haven't put you all to sleep and probably confused you a little bit, but I'm sure there's a few questions, and I am happy to answer questions. I'm happy to answer any questions, and if I can't answer them, I will find out somebody who can.
Thank you, John. That was really, really helpful, and obviously lots of information there. There are a number of questions in the chat, which I will ask in just a second. But before we move to questions, I would like to introduce Colin Hardy from Factory 73. They are an organisation based in the Central Belt, a digital agency who specialise in custom websites, amongst other things. And Colin and the team at Factory 73 are already working with organisations up in the Highlands and Islands. So over to you, Colin.
Thank you, Nicola. Hi, Colin from Factory 73 here. So we're a web development agency, as Nicola said, based in Glasgow. We work mainly in the private sector. We work with public sector clients as well, really varied, from NHS health boards to PLCs, work with White Mackay, fairly interesting work. So we're right across the board, work with a recruiter as well. So yeah, what I really wanted to talk about was our experience of working with Highland organisations. We've worked with a few over the years. I think everything changed in 2020. We used to think that we would see opportunities that were maybe a bit too far away from us, and wanting to meet clients face to face and attend regular meetings and work with clients closely was just impractical because we were too far away. And I think most of us would have felt that at the time. Then COVID came, everything went online. We were all using video. We started to realise that it was impractical and there was no way we could meet these clients. So it opened out our reach about where we could apply for and go for projects. NHS Highland was probably the biggest one we won in that area. And, given that it's over 3 hours to get to Inverness by train, if you were going up for a kick-off meeting or going up for a regular check-in, you'd be using a whole day potentially for 2 or 3 members of your team. At Factory, we've got 12 developers, and that would take quite a few out from our team. So really, with Highland, they didn't want to meet face to face, so it was quite an open board, for us to apply for. So we went for it and we won that project. It was really good working with them. They all worked remotely anyway. They were never in an office, so trying to corral everyone into a meeting room at the one time would have been really hard. But it was a really good experience, and it's opened up other projects for us with NHS Highland, and also got us into the mindset that you can go for work anywhere. And since then, we've picked up business in the United States. We've got clients in London. We've got clients in Wales. It's really spread it out quite a lot. I would say, it's got us more work, and we're winning more projects. We lost one recently in the Highlands. We came second, and we lost to an agency that was based in Manchester. So really, there's been no limit to where you could be based to get work in the Highlands. I would say it's a massive geographical area, largely unpopulated, as we know. Still has some connectivity issues in some areas, but there's still a lot of opportunities up there. I'd really recommend going for anything that you see there and trying to expand your network into that area. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Colin. Appreciate that. Right, so John, there are a number of questions in the chat, which I will start asking just now. There's no real order to the way I'm going to ask these, so apologies, because I might be asking about one fund and then move to another one, but I'll just work my way through them. And obviously, whilst I'm asking these questions and John is providing the answers to them, if anybody has any other questions or any questions based on the answers, then just continue to pop them into the chat and I will work my way through them all. So, first question. I was curious about the not for startups unless they can scale comment. What is the determining factor of fit here? Does it relate to sales, longevity, or something else?
Actually, I suppose it's more about in terms of maybe sort of reputation or track record, or sort of in terms of the fact, and I did try and sort of give sort of examples of potentially, if they've got a track record in terms of an existing business, or they're spinning out from a business that they've done it before, that tends to give us maybe a bit more confidence that they're sort of capable of doing that. If it's, I suppose it's in terms of also, we'll listen to pretty much anyone that comes in and puts an application inquiry into on the HIE website. If it's someone who's just decided, oh, I want to create an app, and it's next thing, and then they basically haven't registered a business or anything like that, trader, I will tend to maybe say, okay, can we get a business plan, or can go to Gateway to just get a bit more sort of meat on the bones. So I'm probably sort of hedging my bets here, because we don't as a team, we don't really want to knock back the chance that we're supporting, you know, the next Sky Scanner, but at the same time, we've got to try and sort of vet out in terms of where actually how far is this going to go. I mean, you know, for example, if it's an idea that someone's doing in, I don't know, Mull, that actually we think, you know, in 5 years' time they could be employing 4 or 5 people in Mull, whether it's directly or remotely, then that's, you know, that's a big impact for us. So we're not suggesting that we're only aiming for sort of the unicorn range or things like that. So it's a quick mix. We will, you know, we're happy to take any inquiry in. We're just saying for maybe some direct grant funding for our R&D scheme. It's probably for sort of maybe companies that have been going for maybe at least a sort of year. We tend not to go with the inventor market, maybe, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no problem at all. Thank you.
But I can reiterate that we will certainly look at anyone if they put an inquiry in and sort of say what advice, and if we can't help them, we'll try and put them to someone they can.
Put them in touch with somebody else. No, thank you very much, John. Hopefully that has answered your question, but if obviously you have any follow-ups from that, then just pop it into the chat and I'll ask that for you too. So next question is, I get quite a lot of inquiries about website development. Does that fall under the software development or data grant?
It depends. Again, it depends if it's just a refresh of their website that's not really going to. It depends on what the impacts of that development will make to that business in reality. Yeah, you know, will it make it more productive? Will it get more customers? Will it end up employing more people? Will it add to their growth? I think we'll look at it in terms of what is the potential impact of us helping support their, you know, website development. If it's just to make it look a little bit more fresh and a thing, but if it's suddenly it's going to be AI driven, it's more data driven, it's more interactive, they're looking to do thing, then yeah, absolutely, it could be classed and supported under that scheme.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Next question is the data grant the same as the 500 to 100,000 grant you mentioned at the beginning of the meeting to support?
No.
It's definitely not. Okay, that's fine.
It's a capital grant. So, for example, if someone, I'll do a robotics one. If someone applied for to the data scheme for a support for putting a robot in to their business, and that the cost of that was £70,000, and they were looking for £40,000 for that would be eligible under the data scheme. It wouldn't be eligible under our R&D grant, because basically there's no R&D there. There's no, you know, they're not all they're doing is buying a product. So the data grant is very much for stuff that's imminently achievable in terms of whether it's development or actually basically purchasing it. The R&D grant, the 5,000, is very much more about, you know, this is requiring, there's an element of this might not initially work. There's quite a lot of real bespoke work to be done. Even if we're actually building a system from scratch, or there's actually a lot of reworking that needs to be done to that particular system. So therefore, that's the difference between the two. It's more an R&D innovations in the first one. The other one's very much basically a funding scheme to support advanced technology introduction in businesses.
Okay, thank you very much. So a couple of questions around this. So where do you see the kind of biggest capability or capacity gaps which are kind of holding back businesses in the Highlands and Islands?
I would definitely say, you know, around that sort of robotic side, even sort of IoT sensors, that element in terms of a lot of the sort of manufacturing, advanced manufacturing support, probably less so in their sort of software development. Again, expertise in sort of AI is limited in terms of the fact it's quite heavily in demand, etc. And so that would probably be sort of definitely, and obviously data science and as well is actually again areas that probably there's still not that level in the locality that would probably meet the demand. So they're probably the key areas, and then obviously some of the more advanced stuff around sort of photonics and the and sort of the really more thing. Obviously, yeah, that's been less. There's some certain very limited, if not none of that in the high area.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you very much. So next question is, can the AI exploration voucher be used for AI governance or just solution focused? So for example, building a framework to then go and enable AI solutions across the organization.
Yes.
It can. Yeah,
yes.
Short and sweet answer there. So that's the nice and simple one for you. Next question is, you mentioned that the grant applications require kind of 2 or 3 quotes, and I think you might have potentially touched on this towards the end of the presentation, but what if a HIE-based company is interested to work with a particular strategic partner or cannot find more partners that can provide them with quotes? Are there any other kind of funding streams available, or can they still access that funding based on the fact that they only have, 1 quote or a particular partner that they want to work with?
Well, so for the R&D side, absolutely, because sometimes it's quite, they're actually sort of collaborating, but they are a supplier and they've been working over the years. It's less for the sort of data scheme and the ICE scheme. It's very much if they can sort of demonstrate that they've, they're the ones they want to work with. They've looked around and there's not anyone with that particular expertise that they think understands what their needs are. So we will look at that on a case-by-case basis. Okay. Again, that's the sort of the quote thing. If a company hasn't already got somebody with, and I know it must drive a lot of the clients mad when they're asked by quotes and they start thinking, am I having just to do this for the sake of it? But at the same time, it is important to make sure that both the client and and the public purse are getting sort of value for money. So we in the sort of, especially in the R&D team, will suddenly get, and we'll sometimes cover in-house costs for our R&D grants, and companies will start quoting saying, yeah, we're charging £500 a day and this is for our own staff, and we go, but you're not paying your staff £500 a day. So it's almost like that. So it's the same in terms of the fact that we need to make sure that they're sort of within industry sort of guidelines, etc. That's not, I mean, don't get me wrong, there might be something really, really expertise that actually, does cost a lot of money. A daily rate is high, but as long as that's demonstrated to be that's not out with realms of that no one's sort of absolutely overcharging on charging for that, then that's fine.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. Thank you very much, John. So next question is there an overview of the kind of current projects and what skills and expertise are required?
So that's something that we're working on, and I will work with my colleague Teresa in terms of getting that put together. So that and we'll put that out to the participants on this, and also we'll put it to you guys as well. I mean, that's one of the things I probably didn't cover in the presentation of how do companies get in touch with HIE, etc. But I can do that at the end of the question.
We can follow that up.
Yes, we'll follow up with that.
No problem. Thank you very much. Okay, so next question. Would there be consideration given to the cost to the suppliers in quoting to meet your 3 comparison, as this may explain why quotes are not being received by your clients?
Sorry.
So I think the question's around kind of, obviously there's time involved from those organisations in creating quotes to give into organisations, but obviously no guarantee that they are going to win business from the quotes that they are providing back into them. So has there been consideration kind of given to, costing that out or potentially providing organisations with some small pot of funding to cover the costs involved in that?
No, I don't think there is. I suppose the bit that I would probably say is that we try very hard to make sure, especially for the data grant, and the thing is to actually saying that a lot of the companies don't know who they don't actually know. So we're basically giving them, we're steering them in the direction of some suppliers that they've never met before. And I suppose it's how well you pitch what you can do in a lot of the cases. Yes, I totally get where you're coming from. There might be a case of that they already know one supplier and we're saying, well, actually we need 3 quotes, and then it is sort of, I'm not saying it's a waste of your time. However, you could make it that much cheaper that they might go, actually, we really, and speak to them and say, actually, this is what we can do. So, and we've had that case before in terms of a company that I dealt with, and they were saying, we're going to work with the supplier. And they said, well, actually, in this case, we need to see what the other, and they actually changed. They didn't go with that. Their initial supplier they already knew before. So, but yeah, I don't think we've got any plans to cover the cost of getting quotes done.
Okay, thank you. Next question is there a set amount of funding allocated for each financial year, or does it just kind of roll over? You've got a set amount of money and it will last as long as it lasts.
So basically certain schemes, so for example the specialist advice scheme and the AI mentoring scheme, that they're currently closed because it's coming towards the end of the public sector financial years. There was so much funding available for those schemes, and they will hopefully start again next year, and we obviously flag up when we'll opening and closing these schemes. The data grant is available for the next, well, it's been going now for about probably the next 4 years, so that's rolls. And the research and development grant and specialist innovation support grant, they've just finishing, and our new program's kicking off in April, and that will be for 3 years.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much.
If a bit of an interesting thing, our last R&D scheme for those 3 years was 1.5 million. So we try and look at 500,000 a year, but we can. The first year, last time, the actual spend was, we did 150,000 in the first year, 600, and we've actually, this last year has been the highest we've done.
Wonderful, thank you. Are these matched funding percentage-based grants, and are they paid in advance or arrears? How does that kind of work?
Oh, okay. So yes, they are all paid in arrears. Just the way the HIE work. I think you rarely get public grants that aren't, unless it's sort of really lower level. So they're all basically, and that is always one of the points, and that's the bit when I'm sort of going back to like startups. Some of the time it's like, well, actually, do they have the money to actually be able to
do it and then get the money back?
So I mean, you can do it in installments. So say it's a 20k project and it's a £10,000 grant. They obviously have to provide receipts and evidence of £20,000, but they can do it. They can do it at the end of the project, or they can do it 10 times, and we've had that in terms of incremental claims. So there was another question in there, and I've just already forgotten.
So no, that's fine. I'm gonna ask it again. So the second part of that question was whether or not the funding is matched funding. Like, is it a percentage matched funding?
Yeah. So yes. Apart from our the specialist innovation support grant could be 100%. I think the data grant is close to that. I think maybe it's only 50, but I would have to absolutely double check that. Sorry, the data specialist advice grant. Then it ranges. We use our state subsidy schemes, so it can range from anything to 30% to 70% of the costs. Occasionally, we can done through something called minimal financial assistance and cover 100% of the cost of a particular scheme. Unlikely for larger stuff. So we do look at it in terms of the fact that, what's the sort of funding gap? What can the company afford to put into this? What can't they? So just going by our research and development grant, the average intervention for that was 46%. And that then ranged from anywhere from 30% intervention to 70%. I think the data grant sits around about 50% in terms of intervention.
Okay, wonderful, thank you.
And those vouchers, sorry, they're 100% HIE-funded.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. So another couple of questions here in the chat, but obviously just a kind of final call to everybody that if you do have any other questions that you would like to ask, now is the time to get those into the chat and I will ask them for you. So second to last question as it currently stands is, would search engine optimization consultancy be covered by the software development grant?
Yes, I think it would, as long as there was justification behind it. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Again, another short and sweet answer there, that one. So last question as it stands just now, but again, one last call to anybody if there's anything else you would like to know to kind of pop the question into the chat just now. Will potential clients be given a clear table highlighting the types of funding, what they will be funded for, and how many quotes they can be given?
So if it's an individual case and then a company approaches us, then yeah, once they'll say, well, you need 3 quotes. You think once we think the quotes will be this, and therefore we'd probably be looking to award you a grant of 50% of the cost of this particular project.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. So as it stands, there are no further questions in the chat just now. But if anybody does have any other questions, then like I say, now's the time to kind of get that in there.
Yeah, and I mean, I think this has been recorded. I've put my my contact details, I think, at the bottom of the slides. And also we'll try and collate everybody that's on the call and make sure that we can actually put out your name, as long as you're all happy to do that, your names as potential for clients to speak to moving forward. But yes, I think what we'll probably do, which is a good point, is actually try and get continue to work on sort of different subspecializations required, and I'll work with my colleague Teresa, etc., to make sure that there's a way of us, either coming into, as I said, you can come into us anytime and ask us any questions on behalf of the client or yourselves, but also we sort of do something almost really involved with the IP and intellectual property and IP audits with the IPO. And what we tend to do is we've got a sort of spreadsheet that we just send out to clients saying, look, here's a list of pretty much every IP lawyer that's in Scotland if you don't know who you're wanting to work with, and here's their specializations. And that tends to work quite well because then to help with that, and that's helped over the years as well.
Yeah, I mean, just so the rest of the attendees are aware, this is the first in a series of kind of 2 webinars around this funding that's available through Highlands and Islands. This first session is for organisations who are based out of the region to help you kind of understand how you can support organisations who can access the funding. But the second webinar is for organisations who are based in the region to help them understand what funding is available to them, and also how they can go about contacting other organisations if they're struggling to kind of get that kind of 3 quotes, or find organisations who meet that demand. So obviously one of the things that we will be highlighting on that webinar is our capability directories and the membership directory as well. So probably a good point to get you all to take a look at what your current listings look like on the directories, and get in touch with us if you would want any kind of changes made to those as well.
I mean, that was, sorry to interrupt, Nick. I mean, that's one of the reasons we got ScotlandIS to do these webinars on our behalf, because obviously they're also members of ScotlandIS, or that they've obviously was the main sort of tech trade body, etc. So they can obviously help liaise between HIE and, but also liaise, they're sort of honest broker between clients and potential suppliers as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So lots of great questions asked there. You've certainly put John through his paces. But as John mentioned, the session has been recorded. We will share John's details with you all after the session as well, so that if you do have any other questions or queries or anything at all, you can reach out to John or ourselves, and we will obviously try our best to answer those questions for you. As always, if we can't answer them ourselves, then we will absolutely endeavour to find somebody who can and come back to you from there. We are scheduled in for another kind of 15 minutes, but I am sure if everybody's diaries looks like mine, then you will be glad to get some time back in them, but ahead of your next meeting. I just want to say a huge thank you to both John and Colin for your presentations. They are greatly appreciated, and to all of you for joining us today. It's been a really useful session, certainly from my perspective as well, to understand all the funding landscape across the Highlands and Islands, and more importantly, the support that other organisations can offer to get involved with that. One last thing that I would like to make you all aware of is that ScotlandIS currently do have access to some Cyber Essentials funding for small to medium-sized enterprises who are based or registered in Scotland. So we will send some information around about that as well when we send on the recording details, etc. But if any of you on the call just now would like to access that funding, then please do feel free to drop me a message and we can pick up and chat around that in more detail. Lots of thanks in the chat as well here, John, saying thank you for the session, appreciate the time, etc.
For listening to my warblings, so I know that's great, really much appreciated, and this isn't just one of those sort of throwaway sessions. We really are, I mean, it is a bit of an issue for us, so that's why we're doing this.
Yeah, well, thank you again to both John and Colin for the presentations, and thank you all for joining us today. There's nothing further in the chat other than, like I say, lots of praise. So we shall wrap the session up there and look forward to the next one. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us.
There we go.
There we go.